Hey there, it's Rachel from All About the House. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the planner pens that I don't recommend. So I'm a pen addict, absolutely love collecting pens and trying out new ones. So in my time of buying way too many pens, I've come across a few that I don't recommend for planning. So I'll just show you what they look like in this video and explain a bit why, because some of them are ones that people love to use, but I'm just like not a fan. Okay, so the first one is the Sharpie Ultrafine Tip. So I know some people love this pen, but for me, it's just too fat and inky for putting in a planner. It takes up too much space. I prefer a thinner tip than the Sharpies. That's the Ultrafine, and then also the permanent. So there's a few different variations of the Sharpie pens as well as your traditional one. And to me, they're just way too thick. They're just not ideal for planning. They're okay for labeling and that sort of thing, but not for planning at all. So I don't recommend Sharpie pens. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is what type of paper you want to write on. So if you're writing on glossy label paper, things like a Sharpie or any other thick marker, for example, the Tri-Plus color, this is the 1.0 millimeter, not to be confused with the fine tip 0.3. So the 1.0 millimeter is quite fat and it's good for headings in your planner like titles and categories, but I don't recommend using it for everyday use. You want to avoid the really thick marker style pens for that. They just take up too much space and they really get a bit messy. And then, for example, my E's, when I write them, you can't really see like the circle in between. It just doesn't work. So avoid Sharpies and thick pens. The other one that I don't recommend is the Papermate Grip Roller. So this one is a 0.7 millimeter, which is normally a good size for a pen, but it's just way too inky when I write. It just gets really like fuzzy around the edges. My camera's not really focusing, but it gets quite fuzzy on the letters. So I don't recommend the Grip Roller by Papermate. Usually pretty much any other pen by Papermate I love, but this one I'm not a fan of. One more that I'm not a fan of that they have is this one, which is the Replay Premium, and it's 0.7 millimeter as well. The only problem is that they say it's erasable, and it's got a similar like tip on it where you rub things out by friction, but it's just not very erasable. It's not very good. Again, my camera is playing up today, but if I zoom in a bit here closer, it gets really like blurry and messy when I rub things out more than twice. It's not very effective, and it's probably not showing on the camera, but in person, this here, which I rubbed out, you can still see a faint mark even though I've like rubbed it out pretty well. So it just doesn't compare to the Frixion. Totally love the Pilot Frixion erasable pens. These ones are the ones that I recommend if you're after an erasable pen, so avoid these ones and go with the Papermate. I think these ones, go with the Pilot. These ones are slightly more expensive. They're about $3.50 each at Big W. You can get them in packs for cheaper though, and these ones I think were about the same, maybe a little bit less. So it's worth spending a little bit extra on the Frixion. Totally love them. They're my all-time favorite pens for planning. Alright, the next one that I don't recommend is the Pilot G2. Now I know a lot of people love using this pen for planning, but for me, similar to the Grip Roller, it's just way too inky. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't like it at all. You can get it in lots of nice colours, so I was quite disappointed that I didn't like it, because it would be a really good pen for colour coding, but for me it's just too inky. So if you don't really like the thick tip inky ones, avoid the Pilot G2. Some other things that I recommend when you're choosing pens and what I don't recommend is the Maxim 1.6 if you don't like a thick tip pen. So if you do want to write with a thick tip, for example if you want to do headings but you don't want something quite as thick as a Sharpie or a Staedtler, then this one would be alright for that because it's 1.6 millimeter, but for everyday planning it's a bit awkward and clunky to write with because it's so fat, the actual pen tips. See how that's quite fat there? Versus something that's a more regular size like a 0.7 or a 1.0 millimeter pen. The other one that I don't recommend is the Milan P1 Touch. This one is prone to skipping a bit on the words, so by that I mean in between your letters you'll get lots of little white marks where the ink doesn't really go down. So it is quite a nice looking pen, but it doesn't write the greatest, and it also doesn't come with black in the pack. So I'd avoid these ones. They were from Officeworks. That's the only place I've seen them. So if you're in the US watching this, you probably haven't even heard of them. The other thing that I don't recommend is using red or teal if you're color coding. So I love these pens. These ones are my favorite for color coding. They're the Papermate Inkjoy Gel 0.7. But for colors, so love the pen, but as for colors, don't use red and teal. They're nice colors, but if you want to coordinate with other stationery, for example sticky notes and all that kind of fun stuff, post-it flags, etc., then those colors are quite hard to find in coordinating accessories. Instead of like pink, blue, purple, and green and orange, you can usually find coordinating stuff if you're color coding, so keep that in mind. The other thing I don't recommend is really neon colored pens. So this one, I love the Artline Smooth, especially the black. It's a really good everyday planning ballpoint pen, but the orange is a really fluoro, and I really hate fluoro pens, so I would avoid them. Other ones that are neon, things like the Staedtler Tri Plus Fine Liner, the 0.3, so that's different to the 1.0 that I mentioned earlier. So these ones are not too bad for neon, but I'm just personally not a fan of neon. If you were going to use neon, the only ones that I would recommend would be the Kaiser Color Pastel, and they also have a neon one as well. I couldn't find where that pack had gone. And they have nice colors that actually show up on the page when you use neon, versus the other ones getting a bit too bright to read. Just like with the yellow, so this one is the Papermate, which I love, but the yellow, and with any pen, the yellow is always really hard to read, so I avoid using yellow when color coding as well. The other one is Typo, so if you're in Australia and you go to Typo, this pen I thought would be really good, and in the beginning it was great, but after I've used it for a while it's become really inky and smudgy, so I would not recommend that one if you want to keep it at like a 1.0. It gets a bit fatter and a bit more smudgy. I don't recommend really fine tip pens, so the thinnest I have is this one, which is the Stabilo .88 Fine 04. This one comes in lots of pretty colors. It is a 0.4 size. In the beginning, I didn't really like it, but it has grown on me, and I actually do quite like this pen now, so I might have to go and get that rainbow pack. But I don't recommend writing anything less than a 0.3. So this one was written with the Stabilo, which is 0.4. So again, my camera's playing up, but this is quite a lot thinner than the 0.7. So for example, I think the Pilot Juice are 0.28, and Muji pens are about 0.28 as well. So for me, that's just way too thin. So if you like just your typical pen size, stick with 0.7 and 1.0 because they're the most common pen tip sizes, and I don't recommend going anything thinner than 0.3, which you can get in the Tri Plus Fine Liner, which are quite popular. They come in lots of other nicer colors as well, not just the neon. So those are just my personal opinion on what pens I don't recommend. Some of these you may like, that's great, but if you're just doing pen shopping and you don't want to spend a lot of money trying out all different types of pens, then these are some things that you might want to keep in mind while you're shopping. So I've done quite a few other pen reviews on my blog. I'll include the link below if you want to go and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want more planner related and review videos, etc. I usually do a new video each week. Thanks for watching, bye!